What's going on, guys? It's Jack. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about loot. This is actually kind of a weird topic, but I wanted to give myself a little rant on this. Loot in World of Warcraft is the most stupid thing to argue about in your raid teams. And it's one of the biggest things that I go into other raid groups and I go into pugs or anything like that, and it just boggles my brain about what I see. So, let's start with some of the loot priorities, the loot systems in World of Warcraft. So, one of the biggest ones, as always, is Loot Council. Of course, you have a bunch of higher-up people who decide on what your loot is. Now, this is probably the best and the worst loot system in WoW, I would say, because you don't know who these people are sometimes. So, it can very quickly go from something where it's, oh, you're a pug or you're new, you're never getting loot over somebody who's been here for 5 years. So kind of get fucked. No matter your performance, no matter your plucky can-do attitude, nothing. No, you're just not getting loot, let's be honest. But if you have actually exceptional officers, well, they're going to look at your performance, they're going to look at your attitude, they're going to look at your willingness to actually do the right thing in progression because, well, that's what helps the group kill bosses, right? And those are my favorite, and that's why I like Loot Council in my current guild, Incarnate, is because I can trust my officers to actually spread the love around while also looking at people's performance on like huge items and saying, we need to get this guy this trinket, this weapon, because he's going to return huge dividends. So I love it, and I hate it. If you trust your officers, A-okay. You get into some of that shady shit, leave immediately. Now, another loot system is EPGP, earn points, gear points. And there's been a lot of iterations of this, but the basic gist of it is showing up to raid on time, again, not being late, clearing trash with the guild, stuff like that, earns you points. And when you want to get gear, you are spending the points to get the gear. There is some systems that use a decay system, so you can't just stock up forever and dump it on one item. Some systems do it kind of differently where it's like, oh, nobody needed this, but you still have to spend the points, or the points are like discounted or something like that. It really depends on the guild. There's a handful of add-ons that do this. I think this is a really dumb system to do it. It's not the dumbest I've seen, but it's pretty dumb because you're making your raiders play like a mini game outside of WoW itself, where you are calculating what your points are, and regardless of if someone has like, oh, I just wanted the socketed upgrade or something like that, and then they go in for it even though they have the normal version of it, and then you have like, some blue on, it kind of blows. It kind of blows that way just because, oh, I have more points, and, I gamed the decay system or whatever like that. So I kind of hate it because you're not only looking at calculating your points, you're looking at calculating the points of other people. It's kind of a shit show. But it's not as big of a shit show as the other system that I wanted to talk about called Suicide Kings. Actually, real quick, there's EPGP, there's DKP, which are kind of similar in methods in how they do it. You're earning points and then you're spending points on gear. There's certain penalties that people can put in, so you're late to raid, you lose minus 50 DKP. Of course, you guys heard about that. Same kind of idea. When you have these points, you spend them. You have certain methods for giving bonuses to other players. And you have certain methods of decaying it, if you decay it or not, how much items cost, etc. There's a ton of add-ons to get like mega specific about it. But anyway, moving on to Suicide Kings. Now, I've raided, and the beginning of me raiding was in very casual guilds, and this is like the strictest form of let's be fair and like love each other and stuff like that, because people are gonna cry about gear, really, And it used to be more of the systems that I've seen that are related to Suicide Kings is like, oh, well, you got this thing last week and they never kept like a hard count. But Suicide Kings is probably one of the worst mini games in the game because it is the hardest idea of you are only going to get this gear once every cycle. So the gist of Suicide Kings is they have a list, everyone top to bottom. Once you get a piece of gear, you're moved to the bottom of the list. And then they just keep on moving it down as you get gear. So the whole idea is everyone, you are in line for gear. Now, one of the biggest problems is if nobody needed this item, then you go to the bottom of the list and you cash in on this item that you would have gotten anyway, be it Loot Council, be it, need over greed rolls, any of that stuff. So it's very frustrating, and I hate the system personally because of the fact that it really can reward people for just gaming this little mini game as much as possible and honestly, in a lot of raiding environments, raiding's not fair. Gear is not fair for progression purposes. You have to, people should be judged, in my opinion, based on performance, not on seniority, which happens a lot in other guilds with loot, shitty loot councils. It happens a lot in guilds that, are gaming these systems just because, or just in terms of fairness. So my whole thing is that I think it's, gear shouldn't be fair. Gear should be, pay to play. You should be rewarded for having a high performance, but you should also make it so that everyone your guild is intending to be performing on future bosses should be prepared for them, both in gear and both in skill. So Suicide Kings just makes it so that the tank's girlfriend can't actually bitch about fairness in loot council or in looting the bosses, because it's just like, oh, this is how we do it. Everyone's gonna get gear, so it's all fair. And lastly, of course, you have roles. I've met many people, all too many. I have like fluctuating luck with rolls, but I've met people who literally can never roll over 50, like ever. Not if it's like a little roll bet when you're betting for a little bit of gold on the side, or just like who gets the BOE to sell on the auction house. Literally, I've seen people who just can't roll over 50. I don't know what's happened to them, but they can't. So I've seen that. I've actually seen people who do golf rules where it's the lowest number wins because these people can't roll over 50. I don't know why. I don't know why, but they can't. So loot rules are complicated and stupid in the best of times, and they're corrupt as hell in the worst of times. So for me, you really have to trust who your officers are, and if you're ever having problems with loot in your guild, and I think this ties more into progression, because who really cares on farm content, honestly? As long as you're getting, sufficient gear to get you the bosses down and to perform adequately with other people, then, I'm kind of whatever about it. For progression, the biggest deal for me is like weapons and trinkets and tier. The off pieces, you shouldn't care about that much in comparison to weapons, trinkets, set bonuses. And I figure I just wanted to rant about it a little bit. Because if you're in those guilds, and I know everyone is in those guilds, you really gotta look at who is deciding on your loot or what system that you're actually using, because you gotta kill bosses somehow, right? And if you're gonna leave it to people who just are gonna look at, oh, well, Jimmy's been here since, the dinosaurs were born and the server first went up, well, guess what? Jimmy sucks. You really gotta let him go, or to stop feeding him gear, because he is not helping you right now. Alright? Or maybe it's you and you need to step it up and check out these guides that are going to be coming out in the soon period for Priest, Holy and Disc. Holy and Disc Priest. That's the word I'm looking for. Have a great night, everybody. I will see you all next time.